Labrīt, vispirms. Good morning, labrīt, доброе утро, tere.
Yeah.
The working language is Estonian. No,
I agree.
It's English, and we have guests from all the mentioned languages, that countries speak those languages that I just mentioned. Somebody from England, and somebody from Estonia, and somebody from Russia. And the overall context of this event, and why I welcome you all here, is the closing the fifth event of Creative Museum 2019 series, public expert and public discussions on the public quality of museums. The larger context of this is state government's reform and the planned museum governance reform. We might call it like that, might not, but still there are some plans for changing the, amending the law on museums. That's the larger context. There is another context, which is the public quality of museums, where we quote the founder of European Museum of the Year Award, Ken Hudson, and he used to talk about public quality of museums. And then suddenly at one point we just realized how many innovative Kenneth Hudson Award winning museums we have in the region. And those are Liebke Memorial, here Wally Thompson, the director, and it's the Rachman Museum Tartu. They unfortunately last minute change of plans, couldn't come. Nevertheless, and we have somebody next door, which is the Russian Boris Yeltsin Center and Boris Yeltsin Museum, indeed. So we have brought all these people together, plus our mentor, Professor David Fleming, a long-standing judge and also board member of the European Museum of the Year Award, or European Museum Forum as we call it. Right, we have divided this conference in two parts. The first one is to join those dots. What is the local context of museum governments here in the Baltic? Not only in Latvia, but also in Estonia. Unfortunately not in Lithuania, but why Estonia? Because we just realized, perhaps recently realized, though we knew it for a long time, that we are sort of a slightly lagging behind something important that is happening right there, further north. And with this realization that one way or another, some reform, some adjustments to the museum law are necessary to make museums more efficient. It's necessary. We invited this bright bunch of people to come over and talk today. But what I wish to do is to look back into history just for the starters. Time and again I find it very, very useful to look back and see what we are as a profession and what the foundations of this profession are. Those of you who don't know, this guy is Nikolaus von Hinsel, the pioneer museologist from Riga, who donated by bequest all his family collections, books, manuscripts, scientific collections to the city of Riga, which became eventually the first public museum in this region. And we talk about 1765, when the Himmlisches Familienlegat, which is the bequest of this family, is donated to the city of Riga, and which stipulates or sets the rules for how the museum should be administered. Of course, at the very beginning, there's just one keeper of collections, a curator, somebody, but there's elected board. And it's a civic movement, right? It's not a monarchy, nobody, there's no king, no monarch who says how things should be run. No, it is a public grassroots movement which accomplishes this. And then we have this extract from the legacy. All the duties of the supervisor or naturalist will be set by the honorable board. And then I highlight the board will also determine his reward, and so on and so on. And there is this list of things that he should be doing according to the catalog, be very precise, and explain everything and be, all those things we talk about today, open and, engaging to the public, and that there should be an acquisitions program as well. So all those things in detail that we talk about today. Only that we don't have boards in museums. Why we don't have boards in museums? December 17, 1940 is the Soviet Latvian government report, which says the Committee of Liquidation of Associations announces that the legato family of Himzel and Behrens, which was his relative, has been dissolved. And since that point, things changed. Since that point, everything was centralized, hierarchical, ideologized, politicized, and so on and so on. We can continue. I skip this period and go to nowadays, when our hands are free to do as we please. And then this is brief history, really short point, says what changes were there since we have a museums law, and that's since the end of the 90s. Museums became the state agencies in July 2005, which gave them some freedoms, and there were terminated agreements to the directors for the first time. A horror to many of them. You will be assessed on a regular basis, and well, it might happen that you won't be director for the next term. And then the world economic crisis put an end to it, and structural adjustments program made us return to the status of state institutions, arm's length government. Again, no terminated agreements, no boards of trustees, no fiscal financial autonomy. Those things that we just discussed among ourselves here, but the broader context. Right, and what we call now Administration Reform Plan 2020 was announced in June 17. And we then asked, is there anything in for museums? Can we join this movement and sort of reflect upon the announcement that by 6% staff will be cut again in the whole system of the state institutions? We thought, does it somehow affect museums? And then there was this idea that we take Rundale Palace as a pilot and turn it into a different sort, legal status institution, so that we can solve this problem of 6% for the whole sector. Okay, so I don't know how far we are with that. Might be realized or not, but this will tell us more. So we reacted immediately, and we came up with the reports and recommendations, rather, to think about it straight away, not hide behind Bosch, or it will affect us badly if we don't do anything as a sector from within. And we said, okay, let's have a task force, let's learn from somebody who has been through that painstaking process for the last 10 years and see what we can do, perhaps even better, or at least start, cautiously learning from somebody who has done it.
Of course better.
Yeah. Of course better. Thank you, Urmas. Well, and we said, if that cannot be a foundation, which is the usual format, legal status in which museums in all countries operate, perhaps it can be a state, the companies that are state stock companies, or whatever form we please, but these reforms are badly needed. Right, and with closing with this point, that there is something in the air, but we still can't grasp it, and that there is a pilot project. Laura from the Rundale Palace Museum will talk as the next. I invite Uldis. Uldis is Deputy State Secretary of the Ministry of Culture, but he has a background in a library as a development director, almost your natural habitat here. So please, Uldis, the floor is yours after this introduction.